While most people can forgive offense, nobody ever forgives contempt. It was a beautiful winter's day in Austin, Texas. The temperature was 67 degrees, and there was a light westerly breeze. The evening looked even more spectacular, with a full moon and a temperature of around 50 degrees at 8 p.m. The weather was perfect for it too, as the Moody Center was hosting a Florida-Georgia Line concert. Henry Kay had 2 front-row tickets to the show for him and his wife Melanie, who was 33 years old. An older couple who had been married for almost 5 years were planning to celebrate Valentine's Day a week early. The only problem was that it wasn't very warm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In fact, it was about 10 degrees Fahrenheit. There was a foot of snow on the ground, and it was predicted to be another 10 in before the snow melted. So, you might be wondering what this has to do with Henry, Melanie, and a date with Tyler Hubbard, Brian Kelly, and the rest of the FGL band. Well, the day before, Henry had been called to Sioux Falls. Henry was called away on business at the last minute to deal with a serious computer problem at Sanford Health Biomedical Center. Their neonatal unit was participating in a nationwide research project when the glitch occurred. Henry was the top IT specialist in his company and was rarely called away on business trips. But Sanford was their 3rd largest client, so Henry boarded the first available Delta flight leaving the airport on Thursday. He got everything sorted out in about 6 hours and booked a 6 a.m. flight to Austin, which would allow him to get home 10 hours before the concert. He had to catch a flight to Austin, which would get him home 10 hours before the concert. The only problem was that by 3 a.m., there was a good inch of snow on the ground and it was still coming down. The Delta app on his phone showed flight delays and then cancellations. Henry stayed awake looking for options. He was well paid for his work and worth every penny, but his boss would be furious if he took a charter flight home. However, he had just saved his company several $1,000s more than a charter would have cost, so he tried to take advantage of that option by 5 a.m. It was clear that no one would be flying anytime soon. The snowfall was set to continue all day and the temperature would drop to freezing. Some were calling it the storm of the decade. Henry could think of only one thing. Around 9 a.m. he dialed extension to call Melanie's office. Her assistant Kim answered on the second ring and put him through. "Hey babe, I'm so excited about tonight. What time will you be home?" "Mel, have you seen the weather in South Falls?" "No, Henry. I knew you were headed there, but I wasn't paying attention." "What's going on?" "Unfortunately, there's a lot of snow. 12 inches have fallen so far, and we're probably looking at another 10 today before it ends. All flights have been canceled." "Oh, baby. I'm sorry. I was so excited about tonight. I know I've been working a lot lately, and this was the perfect chance to start. I was looking forward to a romantic weekend together." "I'm a bit upset, Mel, but I only travel 4 or 5 times a year and only when absolutely necessary. We haven't been together much these past few months, but you're the one spending crazy hours, not me. If anything, my job allows us to have a great Texas lifestyle." "You're right, Henry. We've been apart more often than together recently. I know it's my fault too. I'm working hard to become a partner, which means I have to make time for it. You're at the point where you can dictate most of your schedule and keep it close to normal. I'm getting to that point, but it will be another year or so before I start controlling my hours. I miss you and I miss me too. Why don't you take your girlfriend? Sue, why don't you go and have some fun? The tickets are front row and trying to sell them is too much trouble. I can order a car to pick you up and bring you home. Don't let me spoil the fun of a great show." Melanie hesitated and talked about just selling the tickets. She would just stay home and watch the concert online. She could log into their Ticketmaster account and sell seats with no problem. She continued to talk about how she wasn't keen on going if he wasn't with her. Henry kept on encouraging her to go and have fun. He reminded her that she had a new pair of taco ass, and those stylish shoes looked good on her. After a few minutes she agreed. They both said "I love you" and ended the call. 5 minutes later, Melanie found a phone in the back compartment of her large bag and dialed the first number. This was her part of the conversation. "Hey, how was your? I had a good day. I might have something to cheer you up." Henry just called. He's stuck in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He had to rush down there on business and there was a big snowstorm. Can you imagine his bad luck? "Yeah, and you were lucky anyway. I still have 2 tickets on the Florida-Georgia line tonight, but my husband will be cooling his heels in the Great White North." Diane is still visiting her relatives in Memphis. That's great. Let's spend the evening together. I have a new denim skirt and boots I've been wanting to try out for a while. I'll come over to your Uber and we'll see. Yeah, I'll order an Uber with tinted windows so we can have some privacy. Let's plan a late-night party after the concert. I'll see you around 7. I can't wait. Melanie worked hard and made it through lunch so she could leave the firm by 4:30 p.m. She wanted to relax in the tub for an hour before heading to the concert. Before leaving the office, she called her best friend, Susan O'Connor. They had met during her first year at the firm and hit it off immediately. They were only 1 year apart in age and married only 2 weeks apart that same year. They had a lot in common. Hey Susie Q, meet a favor, babe. What's up, Mel? I just can't get away from him. I know his partner's calling that because he can be a bit of a pain, but let me tell you that nickname has another good reason. Girl Sue was not amused by this. Mel, Henry is a wonderful man and you two together make a wonderful couple. This is the moment when you start thinking about kids and raising a family together. You're not in college anymore, sis. Why are you spreading your legs for this player? You're jeopardizing everything for fun. Mel's friend was loyal but also held more conservative views on fidelity. I know. Sue Henry is a great guy, and I think there's a chance he might leave. David is wild and fun. We're both happily married, but we just have a spark that rocks our worlds. Mel, you really need to think a little deeper before you open your mouth. If you were happily married, you wouldn't be sleeping around with your boss on this side, nor would he be entertaining one of his female employees. What part of the marriage vows did you not understand? Renouncing all the others is pretty easy. Mel was beginning to tire of her friend's lectures. Sue, will you cover for me or not if Henry ever asks? I won't offer any information or ever. I'll bring it up, but if he asks me, I'll tell him I was with you. We'll be sitting front row, right in the center. Thanks, Susie Q, you're the best. Next weekend we're spending the day at the spa, which I'd love to do. So Henry bought great tickets, and now you're going to use his gift to cheat on him. With David, Sue thought to herself, okay. Mel hurried home and began to get ready for her date. She had a couple of glasses of her favorite Pinot Noir, shaved her legs in a bubble bath, and then got dressed. She was wearing a white lace bra so she could undo a couple of the top buttons on her white blouse. She had buttons on her white blouse and her skirt was pulled up about 6 inches above her knees, showing off her strong legs. The boots were dark gray and matched the vest. They had been a Christmas present from Henry. It was the first time she'd worn them, but she was so excited that she didn't think about the irony. She looked in the mirror and was pleased with what she saw. She figured she'd impress a few people this evening, but she was only interested in one. She had another glass of wine and then ordered an Uber. When it pulled up, she asked the driver to stop at one of her stops on the way to the concert. He was happy to agree, as he could use the extra cash. The car pulled up to a gated apartment complex. Melanie gave him the code to enter. They drove 2 blocks and pulled over to the curb just then. David Miller, Melanie's boss, jumped out of his condo and jumped into the back seat. He greeted his companion with an enthusiastic kiss and a "You smell and look beautiful, Mel." Melanie welcomed his kiss, opening her mouth and accepting it with a purr. Calm down, big boy. There will still be time for that. It's going to be a great show. The Uber driver stayed silent but noticed the wedding ring and diamond on her left hand as she kissed and caressed her lover, who was muttering to himself for her part. Mel had never intended to cheat on her husband. They had met on a blind date arranged by her best friend. Sympathy had quickly developed between them. She was outgoing, friendly, and good at socializing with friends. Henry was a little more reserved, but there was an inner strength about him that appealed to her. She never felt like he overshadowed her, but his presence, he was always there for her, making her feel safe. He was kind but firm, with a warm personality and a wise head on his shoulders. He'd gone to college on an ROTC scholarship and served in the Marine Corps for 5 years. This experience, combined with his character, made him a man who could always be counted on. This character trait was as good for Mel as his rough 190-pound appearance. Henry was skeptical of Mel's affection from the beginning. He'd never considered he was a great catcher or had any special qualities. The corpse had taught him that his duty was to serve those around him. You go first and fall back last. That's what they drummed into him at OC's. This code made an impression on him that stayed with him even after he returned to civilian life. so being pursued by a beautiful woman made him slightly embarrassed. They grew up with Mel and Henry. Mel's fears subsided, and Mel's confidence in them grew. They married after an 18-month courtship, after a month-long courtship that included a 4-month engagement. Thanks to his time in the communications department and his natural ability, Henry landed a great job at his current firm in Austin in his 3rd year with the company. He became head of his own department in his 5th year, and then vice president of information technology development and client support. Mel graduated from law school 9 months after their marriage and landed a solid entry-level position. She got a great job at a medium-sized firm in Austin that specialized in oil and mineral rights. She was really smart and caught the attention of the firm's 3 partners, Connor, Sims, and Miller. That's where the trouble began. David Miller was 43 years old. He was an older married man with 2 teenage children. His wife, Diane, worked as a principal at a local high school. Mel liked her and had always thought they were well suited to each other as a married couple. However, much about her boss remained a mystery to her. What was clear, though, was that David Miller was a tough bastard to work for. He was a senior partner who worked at least 55 hours a week, while his 2 colleagues worked barely more than 40. He expected his team to work somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 hours a week. Mel was in her 3rd year with the firm and had finally gotten down to an acceptable 65. Mel was pleased with her work and got better assignments. They spent more time together during the day and after work, with the team, and alone. Before long, they were talking about more intimate topics and even touching each other. They knew they were playing with fire, but they couldn't stop. 6 months ago, things really took off. They won a big judgment that would bring in about $2 million for the practice. David's share would be about $400,000. Mel would get $45,000, and David would get $400,000. The team of 6 got together in David's office for a late afternoon celebration. They were in such high spirits that David even opened a bottle of his 4 Roses single-barrel bourbon for the occasion. After an hour or so, the party started to wind down. David asked Mel to wait a bit, which got a couple of smirks from the more observant people in the crowd. David took the last person out and closed the door quietly. David turned around and saw Mel leaning against his desk, undoing her buttons. He paced the floor, clearly agitated. While David wasn't as big and strong as Henry, he was more commanding. He was the kind of man who knew what he wanted and went after it. He'd wanted Mel since he'd first gotten to know her intimately about 2 years ago, and now he was working out for them. I feel a connection with you that I don't want to resist. We're both married and want to stay that way, but I hope we'll have moments like this day every now and then. It makes me happy to hear you say that. Mel, yes, we both want to stay married, but I also want us to have more moments like this one, which was 6 months ago. Mel and David were walking hand in hand into the concert arena. They managed to hide their infidelities well, but still saw each other at least twice a month. Tonight they didn't seem worried about being seen. They weren't overly affectionate, but anyone could tell this was a date. Between 2 people who were drawn to each other back in Sioux Falls, a frustrated Henry decided to broadcast the concert live. If I can't be with her, maybe I can see her when they pan the crowd, he thought to himself, after warming up the band FGL. They played 4 fast and loud songs, and the camera didn't look at the audience too much until the 5th song, which was a slower one by Cruz, was performed when the camera started filming couples in the audience. Henry almost went to the bathroom when the song started, but he remembered it was Mel's favorite song and stayed for 30 seconds. 30 seconds later, his world crumbled and his marriage fell apart. The camera stopped on a couple in the front. The man and woman were still hugging, slow dancing and kissing deeply, completely unaware that they were being shown on the big screen in the new boots that Henry had given her for Christmas. Mel was unrecognizable, and although he didn't know him well, there was no doubt that this was David Miller. Embracing and passionately kissing his wife, Henry sank to the floor, at a loss for words. He was overcome with the pain of betrayal like he'd been punched in the gut. He was dazed, dizzy, and struggling to breathe. The camera moved to the other 3 couples, but then back to Mel and David again. This time, Mel broke the kiss, looked up, and saw them on the screen. She looked like she was about to have a panic attack. She buried her face in David's chest and pulled his head against her so he wouldn't look up. Henry sat on the floor for 15 minutes, tears streaming from his eyes. He asked himself questions like, why did Mel snap? Why did she get angry? Screw you, Mel. I'm definitely going with you, David. Miller, as he began to come to his senses, realized he had to act fast. The corpse had taught him that if you sit still and do nothing, you can die. If you move and give the enemy a fight, you have a chance. He sprang into action. Henry called his good friend, an attorney, Michael Libcom. Michael was a little surprised to get the call at 9. It was 9:30 on a Friday night, but even more surprising was the subject of the conversation. Michael told Henry he was sorry and pressed him a couple of times, asking if Henry was sure it was Mel. Once he was sure, he told Henry to hang up, but to answer the call that would come in within the next 5 minutes. 3 minutes later, the phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but it was Austin's area code 512. Hello, this is Henry K. Hello, Mr. K. This is Erica Hamilton, an attorney and good friend of Michael's. Hello, Mrs. Hamilton. Thank you for calling me. Call me Erica and I'll call you back. You Henry, Erica, replied Henry, who was about to say something, but she continued. I'm sorry for being so short with you, Henry, but time is of the essence. Your wife is at the concert with another man, and you witnessed their intimacy on the live broadcast, is that correct? Yes. Okay. Where were they sitting, and what were they wearing as far as you can tell? Henry answered as quickly and succinctly as possible. When we hang up, send me the latest and greatest picture of your wife. I have a private detective on his way to the concert right now. He'll be there in 10. He'll be following them all night, and, if necessary, all weekend. We need to gather as much evidence as possible as quickly as possible. Thanks, Henry. Can you stay in South Falls for a couple more days? We need to make sure our evidence is irrefutable. One night at the concert won't be enough. If you can stay in the snow or do some other work for your client, we'll have a better chance of catching him with his pants down. Please send me the picture as soon as you can. It's a possibility, so just wait for my call tomorrow at the latest. I'll give you the latest news then. Give your wife a call in the morning at a decent time and let her know you'll be delayed until at least Monday evening. I'm pretty sure your employer won't mind. I'm a senior vice president, so I have a flexible schedule. I've got some more work to do with a client on Monday. Great. I'm sorry I have to run. We'll talk tomorrow. Henry was grateful for the conversation and quick action. He was still dizzy and had no idea how it would end, but this woman was clearly good. He didn't get much sleep that night, and, as a result, never listened to FGL again. It was 30 in the morning when Henry finally gave up trying to sleep. He got up and looked outside. The snow had gotten fainter but was still falling. He turned on the local radio station. They were reporting that 22 in had fallen in the last 36 hours, which was a record high for Sioux Falls. It was obvious that nothing much would happen for the rest of the day or even the next day. Henry started, he made notes, and he didn't like to cheat. It didn't matter if it was the first or the 100th time. He wouldn't tolerate a broken trust between loved ones. And if cheating wasn't bad enough, the contempt they both showed him was simply prohibitive. They slow danced and kissed in a very public place in his town. Even if they were only seen by 1 or 2 acquaintances, word of mouth would spread. Word got out to 1 or 2 acquaintances, and before you know it, it was all over the place. Did you hear that Melanie Ka is getting her husband drunk with her boss? There was no way he'd put up with that. He thought about his actions as her husband over the past 5 years. He'd always been faithful, but not because women were banging down his door. He rarely looked at another woman. He was head over heels in love with Mel, and that meant he was completely faithful to her. They did have their fair share of arguments, but he was a good husband to her. He was caring, friendly, protective, but always respected her as an equal partner. He didn't deserve such neglect. He made a spreadsheet of assets. He made a short list of people to call, including his boss, his father, and 2 friends from the office. After talking to Erica, he got up at 7 and went to the hotel gym, where he worked out until 9. After showering and eating breakfast, he picked up his phone. There were 2 messages from Mel. She was asking how he was doing and telling him how much she missed him. She also mentioned that the concert had gone well. Sue had joined her. He decided to check something out. Perhaps he should have waited to consult with his attorney, but after all, he was a Marine in action in the face of a crisis. That didn't seem like a good option. The phone rang twice before it was answered. Hi, Henry. Sue said you were snowed in Sioux Falls. I saw the weather map. It looks terrible. Hi, Sue. Yeah, it's just a whiteout here. Texas hasn't had this much snow in ages, not to mention it's only been snowing for one day. I'll be glad to get home. What can I do for you, Henry? Sue's voice sounded nervous. Look, Sue, I was just wondering how you liked the concert last night. I thought the opening song of the concert, This Is How We Roll, was great. I watched it live from my hotel room, Henry. Yes, it was a great show. I know Mel had fun, but I really missed you. Thanks for saying that. Sue, can I ask you one more question before I let you go? I know you're a big FGL fan, so I'm wondering how you could confuse This Is How We Roll with Uptown, which they opened last night. Is that possible? Sue, there was silence on the other end of the line, so Henry continued. Sue, I know you're a friend of Mel's, but I also considered you a friend of mine. I don't know what I did to deserve such disrespect from you and Jim, but your betrayal hurts me deeply. I felt a huge lump in my throat, and tears came to my eyes. I realized I'd made the wrong choice in covering for Mel. No friend would ever ask a loved one to help them be dishonest and hurt others. I'm sorry, Henry. Sue, how long has David Miller been entertaining my wife's interest? About 6 months, I'd say. Henry had been preparing for something like this, but hearing it for the first time, he was shocked. He had to fight to keep his composure. Sue, does Jim know that you're lying for Mel and helping her betray her wedding vows to cheat on me? Oh no, Henry. Jim doesn't know anything about that. He'd be mortified and ashamed to know my part. Okay, Sue, for now. I won't tell Jim about your part in this. It'll all come out soon, and I'm sure he'll have questions for you. Jim is a good man, so my advice to you is to come clean when the time comes. In the meantime, if I hear you say a word about this conversation to Mel, I'll call Jim myself and make sure he explains unequivocally what part you played in helping Mel despise me and ruin our marriage. Sue was crying now. No, Henry, I won't say anything to Mel. I won't even. I'll be in touch over the weekend, but I'll avoid calling her. I'm really sorry and ashamed, Henry. He ended the call without saying goodbye. Sue realized the mistake she'd made. In the name of friendship, she knew she'd have to talk to Jim eventually. Henry called Mel on the phone. Her voice was sleepy, but she played the role of loving wife. She posted up a storm when she found out he wouldn't be back until Monday evening at the earliest. She and Sue had a good time, but it wasn't the same without him. She had a few things to do, like run a few errands and do some chores around the house, but nothing major. She promised she'd save the special stuff for when her husband got home. She ended the conversation with "I love you," and Henry replied, "Bye." That struck her as odd, but she didn't think much of it. 158 Henry got a call on his mobile. It was Erica. She gave him a quick update and said she'd call back around 7. She gave him a full report and called at exactly 7 p.m. The summary of the case is as follows. The private investigator was very good. He infiltrated the concert and took more pictures. Mel was scared of the cameras for a while, but by the end of the concert they were hugging and kissing again. They went back to Henry and Mill's house. The EP had anticipated this and had an assistant set up recording equipment in several rooms. They spent the night in the master bedroom engaging in a very vivid relationship. Later, in the kitchen, they engaged in a casual but frank conversation about their relationship. In a relaxed but frank conversation about their relationship. They openly discussed a few instances where they had broken the rules. They also talked about how to keep things private. They went out to lunch and then returned to Kay's bedroom for the afternoon and evening. The private investigator would continue his surveillance and notes, but Erica assumed things would be the same. She wanted to know what was on Henry's mind. He had been pondering and taking notes all day. He outlined his thoughts to his lawyer. She has despised me publicly and privately for 6 months. The marriage is over. She should feel the humiliation she has heaped on me, along with her friends and family. The truth of her actions must be made public. There is no reason to embellish the facts. Speak for yourself, but no nonsense about irreconcilable differences. I want her sent to work as soon as possible. I want his wife to know when I'm servicing Mel. The same goes for David. I want his wife to have. I really hope she brings him out in the divorce. I also hope his partners have more morals than he does, and get him to leave the practice. Maybe if we threaten to sue the firm, since they've been doing this repeatedly in the office, we could encourage them to do it. I don't want to stay in this house. I need to sell it. There are too many memories. Honestly, I don't even know if I'll stay in Texas. However, I don't want her to stay in it either. Hopefully we can split it 5 ways. I'd like to protect all my assets, as I'm a sewer. I don't mind using my money to pay off cars or other small debts, but I don't want her getting child support from me. She just got a big bonus, and she's already getting a small 6-figure sum. Erica asked a few clarifying questions. She told Henry that, given his ability to make good money, it was likely that she would receive alimony. However, if the law firm had a morals clause, they could show that her infidelity had ruined the marriage, which might help Henry. He would stay in South Falls or Austin until Tuesday afternoon. He'd be served mid-afternoon at the latest. Erica would try to track down Mrs. Miller and see if she wanted to join in the fun. Henry noticed that Mel didn't call him again on Saturday or until early Sunday evening. She and the others must have been having a great time. He knew he had to call her, or she might suspect something. I gave her a call at around 9. I've been thinking about you and realized we hadn't spoken since yesterday. I hope you're still going home tomorrow. I can't wait to get to you. I've missed you so much. I'm sorry, Mel, but that will be on Tuesday. I have a flight through O'Hare that will get me home around 3 mornings so we can plan to have dinner together, she replied, sounding a little disappointed. But next time I meet with James, the CEO, and Henry's boss, I'm going to tell him no more winter trips. He ruined a great weekend we were supposed to be enjoying together. You'll tell him when you want to see him again, Henry said, almost chuckling at the thought. But he thought, what a cold-blooded evil you've become, Mel. They talked for another minute or two and then hung up. Up, Mel said. Henry, I love you so much. You know that, don't you? You know how much I love you. Yes, Mel. Henry replied, holding back new tears. I know exactly how much you love me, and hung up the phone. He just couldn't let her humiliate herself. Even if he gave her a clue, he knew what was happening to her. She'll never humiliate me again, he thought, as he dialed his boss, James's number, to keep him in the loop. Henry sat at the kitchen table on Tuesday at 3:00 sharp. He wasn't sure when Mel would be back from Erica. He knew things were moving along. She was supposed to arrive sometime between 2 and 4. Apparently, Miss Miller had already forgiven her for 2 previous affairs with women like Mel. She wasn't in the mood for a third, and was happy to hire Erica to represent her interests as well. Both Henry Kay and Diane Miller and Erica were named as plaintiffs in a civil suit against Connor Sims. Erica reminded both of them that she didn't think it would come to anything, but rumor had it that while Connor and Sims weren't necessarily choir boys, they weren't the type to put up with a lack of morals that hurt their practice. Perhaps this jerk would be shown the door at 3:15 p.m. Erica gave Henry a call to let him know what had happened, and they talked briefly about what to do next. Henry's phone was flooded with messages and calls from Mel. The messages said things like, "What the hell? How dare you humiliate me in my workplace? Answer me. You better be home when I get home. I'll never forgive you for this." Henry had only seen combat twice. His job in the communications office was a combat support role, but every Marine is trained to be a gunner. Twice in Iraq, he was caught in firefights. Neither of them lasted long. His captain, who never praised anyone, took the young first lieutenant aside and told him he did a great job for a rookie. Well done for your first time, Henry. Thanks to his combat experience, Henry was calm and determined as he faced the fight that was about to break out in his kitchen. "Henry, where the hell are you?" Mel yelled, coming in the side door from the side of the driveway. She threw a folder on the desk and said, "You bastard. You handed me divorce papers at work. How could you do that? How could you be so cruel? Do you realize how humiliating that was?" Her tone softened a little as she said, "Why, Henry? Why did you file for divorce? We love each other. We have a wonderful marriage and what are you thinking? Talk to me, Henry." He kept his cool. He'd realized that he was seeing Mel for the first time since the awful news last Friday. Her eyes were sunken and puffy, and she looked nervous. He noticed that she'd opened the divorce petition, but hadn't looked through it. "Let's sit down and talk this over." "Don't tell me to sit down, you bastard. Who do you think you are? What are you doing on the side? I swear I'll cut your balls off if you are." She hovered over him, but he stood his ground, towering over her with a calm but grim expression. He said again in a voice that demanded attention, "Sit down, Mel." "Now," he said, "have you even looked at the file attached to the divorce petition?" Mel shook her head from side to side but didn't reach for the file. Let's look at what caused my world to come crashing down around me last Friday night. First, I'd like to show you a photo of you and David at the concert. No, not with Sue, as you lied to me, but with your boss. That's a lover's embrace and a kiss. You two are enjoying it. Mel jerked away from the table as if the photo was a snake about to strike. David, this is my time to talk. I'm going to play the next item, which is a flash drive. You can play it on your laptop later if you want, but it's a recording of you having sex in our bed last Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. The tape also includes the conversations you had right here at this table. Melanie, I'm going to come right out and say it. I've got a flash drive here that I think you should see. It's got recordings on it of you and David having sex in our house. It also has recordings of you discussing past adventures and how to keep me and Diane Miller in the dark about them in the future. Oh, and I should mention that Diane Miller served David with divorce papers today. I don't know how he'll explain that to his kids. This is the third time he's been caught with an employee, but that's not my problem. Melanie flinched at this revelation. She seemed to think she was special, the only one he'd been with outside of wedlock. He was also a great liar, but then again, he was a lawyer. What did she expect? Anyway, there are a few more pages here describing your betrayals as far back as Sue could remember. She realized that covering for you would cost her marriage to Jim, so she turned to state's evidence using legal terms. Another way of putting it is that she threw you under the bus. She told you everything. She even lied about you being with her on the weekend last November, which was just a ruse to get you and Sue to sneak off to South Padre. Sue isn't going to be calling you anytime soon. Jim has made it clear that the marriage is over if she speaks to you outside of his presence. Finally, I have a copy of the civil suit that Diane Miller and I are filing against your law firm. It's done in our marital bed, which doesn't violate any company policy. However, his desk couch and private bathroom are all part of the law firm, so that's where we may have a case. Our attorney thinks we have a fighting chance. So, my dear horror wife, this is why I'm divorcing you. You have broken my heart in a way that I can hardly ever put into words. I was so upset last week when I had to fly to Sioux Falls because I couldn't wait to spend time with the only woman I've ever loved, the only woman I ever wanted to love. I had hoped she would be the mother of our children. I was watching the concert live, hoping to see my little girl singing and dancing. She was trying to keep us apart from her friend Sue. I nearly died when I saw her in the arms of another man, kissing and caressing him. I was pretty much shattered in an instant. I guess I'm a big enough person to take offense to Mel. Even a serious offense. People aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. Perfect forgiveness should always be part of a marriage, but you didn't hurt me. You treated me with contempt and deliberately humiliated me in public. I'm not going to put up with that. I'm not going to stay married to you, Mel. I'm not going to wait around for more than it takes to get a divorce. I'm not going to make your life easy. I'm going to keep as much of my money as I can. Your family and friends will know what you've done. I'm not going to hide the truth from them for the sake of someone who spat. She's made her position clear, so I'm going to have to take the initiative here. I think you were always going to react this way. That's it then. I'm done. Speak softly if you want. Mel was trying to keep it together, but she wasn't too successful. She was a strong and proud woman, but this man she claimed to love, whom she had betrayed so deeply, had simply destroyed her by. He told her the truth about how her actions had affected him and their consequences. She wanted to hate him and blame him. She tried to avoid making such an obvious mistake, but she couldn't escape the truth about who she was. Have you told my parents? I'll leave that up to you. I spoke to M, my boss. I haven't spoken to anyone except a couple of colleagues I served with, other than my lawyer and our company attorney, Michael. I'll be frank. If you try to hide the truth or whitewash your actions, I'll give them everything, including what's on the flash drive. I can't tell my parents everything. They'd be devastated. I don't think you can hate me that much, Henry. You didn't care about my feelings or the fact that your choices killed my heart. You've been acting hateful towards me for at least 6 months, and that's assuming you didn't have any other lovers before that. Don't pretend to be a victim. I'm giving you a week to share. I'm going to give them a week to share. After that, I'm calling. They better have a firm idea of what happened, or they'll get a copy of everything. David was the first and only one, Henry, I swear. Mel and Sue were together at the concert last Friday. You and Sue didn't have fun in our marital bed all week. You were telling me how much you loved me. I assume that every time you open your mouth you are lying. I doubt you even know how to tell the truth. Henry, I didn't mean for this to happen. I wasn't looking for it. We won the Dutton case, and once we started, I wanted to stop it, but I just couldn't. I don't know why, really. Mel, you don't know why Henry flipped through the folder until he found the right page. I'm sorry. I should have realized from your conversations how much you wanted to be faithful to me. For example, there was that quote from 2 months ago when you were both lying in our marital bed. David, I can't get enough of you. We have to be really careful if Diane or Henry finds out about this. We'll have to quit. I don't want to ever stop making love to you. Yes, Mel. You seem to be so inconsistent in your behavior. You're completely misguided, Mel. Henry's words began to reach consciousness. Mel sank down in her chair. She was silent for a while, then finally spoke. I have no excuses, Henry. I'm a grown woman and I made my choice. I thought I could hide it from you. I thought I could play this game, and if you didn't find out, it would be harmless. I knew David was just an affair. I knew we would never love each other, even if I said. I never had feelings for him the way I have for you. But I betrayed you and your love for me. Mel paused for a moment to blow her nose and dab her eyes. She looked across the table at Henry and immediately noticed 2 things. His wedding ring was lying on the table, and the look in his eyes told her. He made it clear that he had lost all hope of redemption for her. He treated her with the same contempt she treated him with. Her safe little world of a loving husband was gone. Henry, I don't know what to do or where to go. I can't leave the house before the divorce. That would mean admitting it's over. It would be financial suicide. I don't know what to do. So, if you're leaving, why don't we agree to stay here for a while? I need time to think and decide how to proceed. I can't promise I won't fight for a divorce right now. All I want is to be with you forever. I can't imagine life without you. I will stay in one of the spare rooms and avoid contact other than... What's the best way to handle this as roommates? I'll respect your space, Mel. I'm not here to tell you what to do or think or where to go. Erica, my attorney advised me not to leave the house until the divorce is official. She also said you'll probably feel the same way. You're staying in the master bedroom tonight. I refuse to sleep on the I'll take the mattress you and Henry were sleeping on to the Salvation Army, and they'll bring me a new one. This will be my bed, and you'll never sleep on it. Thanks for understanding, Henry. I'll fight to stay if I have to, but it's my only choice under the law. Thanks. You're going out of your way to help me. I'll start moving my stuff tomorrow while you're at work. Mel stood up and tried to hug Henry, but he quickly pulled away from her. Screw you, Mel. Don't ever try to touch me again. It's all I can do to be in the same room with you and stay calm. You ruined my life. You ruined us. I'm not going to be your comfort now or ever again for doing such a terrible thing. You made your choice, and you have to live with it. I'll never forget what you did, but I'm going to try my best to get you out of my life. That's already started. Mel collapsed back into her chair, put her head on the table, and started crying. Epilogue. Mel fought the divorce to the end in silence. She hoped Henry would change his mind and stay. She also had to fight if she wanted to keep any shred of self-respect. Many friends ended their relationships with Mel after finding out what she'd done to Henry. Mel asked the court to order counseling, proving that she was already in therapy and had nothing to do with David Miller. However, representing herself in court isn't a good idea, but Mel was worried about paying for an attorney, so she decided to give it a try. It slowed things down. The process took a while, but she never lost focus. Even Mel's parents asked her to let Henry go. They were upset by her actions and sided with Henry, even trying to maintain a relationship with their daughter. It took 7 months, but the divorce was granted. The house and savings were split 550 trillions, but David didn't have to pay alimony. Sometimes things work out. Melanie left Connor Sims Miller and went to work for a small firm in San Antonio on the day of her departure. She was walking out the front door and turned to say goodbye to Henry. He closed the door in her face before she could speak. She rarely went on dates now, but on Friday nights she usually went home with a random guy just to have fun and maybe even find a little human companionship. It makes her think of being a woman who left a good man in a marriage. Connor and Sims do have souls, even if they are lawyers. They forced Miller out, and he moved to Houston a few months later, taking a job at a small law firm run by his cousin Diane. She had ripped him off in the divorce, and the kids wouldn't speak to him. Henry and Diane's lawsuit was settled out of court for $250,000. The plaintiffs were each awarded $100,000. Erica was pleased with the outcome. One evening, David Miller was at a bar called Evers, which was in a rundown area of town. As he was leaving, a man approached him in the car park. Henry Canna looked into the man's eyes. There were no security cameras in the neighborhood, so Henry punched the man in the face. "I just wanted you to know who did this to you, David. I wanted you to look me in the eye and realize that it happened. If you report it, there are 12 retired Marines sitting in a bar in downtown Austin right now. Most of them are in combat vests, and they'll swear I was with them all evening. If I get arrested and charged with assaulting you, 1 or 2 of them will come back and finish what I started." The charges were never filed. About a year after the divorce, Henry was walking out of a coffee shop in downtown Austin when he looked up to see a beautiful woman about his age walking toward him. He held the door for her as she entered. "Thank you, kind sir," she said. "It's nice to see the cowboys still have manners," she replied. "You're welcome, Mom," Henry said, heading for his car. He thought, "What the hell?" and turned around, walking back into the house. She was sitting facing the door and immediately looked up when he returned. He walked over to her table, held out his hand, and said, "I'm sorry, but I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Henry." She took his hand in greeting. "Nice to meet you, Henry. I'm Lori. Would you like a chair?"